Hey guys, it's Alexis Did It, and I figured I would go ahead and talk a little bit about myself. So, just driving down the road thinking about life and whatnot, and I didn't have the worst childhood, definitely didn't have the best. I'm sure everybody could relate, or at least a lot of people could relate. And with that being said, at about 9 months old, my mom, with my father, she ended up running at the other end of a shotgun. And from that point forward, I never knew my father, never knew anything about him, about my father's side of the family. That all kind of changed about 2 years ago. Still never knew anything about my father, but I did find out that he passed away quite a few years before that. And, it didn't really impact me much. My mom thought it would. She gave me the news on my 29th birthday. She gave me the news. And she felt like it was devastating. The fact that she found out my dad died, she told me, and it really didn't matter to me. I never knew him. How can you feel bad for somebody that you never knew? Some people say I might be a little callous for that. I choose to think otherwise. But anyways, about 9 months old, my mom ran from my father at the other end of a shotgun. Father, as I've been told by numerous people, even on my father's side of the family, good guy, did a lot of bad things. I don't know the extent. I've heard some stories, and I could get into that another time. But with that being said, it was me, my mom, and my brother, who's about 3.5 years older than me. And it was me and him. My brother went to go stay with his father, and it was me and my mom. And my brother's father ended up going MIA, never said anything. So my mom went searching for him. This was a time period where I was about 1.5 years. No, I was about 3 years old at this point. And she would buy coke, sell coke, I'm assuming in a profitable way, to where she was still able to do coke, so she was able to stay up and look for my brother. Well, I don't know exactly how it all happened, came together, but my mom did end up finding my brother, took him back, and kudos on my mom. I know that could be a pretty hard thing to do, trying to find somebody after they moved without saying anything. So that was up to about 3 to 4 years old. We were homeless, looking for my brother. She would panhandle for food from McDonald's, so she was able to feed me. And obviously you can tell that we got by. So it was pretty much me and my mom and my brother. And I remember growing up with multiple scenarios of my mom dating pretty bad men. Just not the greatest. On the night of my 5th birthday, I did witness my mom on the ground with a gun held to her head. She didn't die, she didn't get shot, nothing bad like that happened. However, we did escape. And going from there, you know, it was actually from that same situation where my mom had the gun held to her head. Before that had happened, from that same guy that she was with, I remember he owned a junk lot for cars and miscellaneous other types of motorized vehicles, and there was this boat that he kept on his property. And I remember one time walking, we went up to the boat and he wanted to show it to me, and I thought it was cool. You know, I got to go up in there. It was one of them bigger boats. You hop up on there, and it had one of them lower decks that you could walk down into. You know, typically had like a little bedroom and shit. Well, it was in that bedroom that this man had told me to drop my pants, and I'm sure you can see where this is going. So that was an experience that I had to unfortunately go through. And shortly after, you know, my mom snatched me up after smashing him in the head with a house phone. 1996. Some of you will understand, some of you won't. Things had some weight to them. Put a gun to his head, smacked him. Put a gun against my mom's head, smacked him with the phone, yanked me up, and away we went. You know, so that was that. And about a year later, you know, another guy, not the greatest. And, you know, he was, I guess, mildly physically abusive to me and my brother on multiple occasions. He had his own son, and we were kind of like, you know, the bastard children. And, you know, with that being the case, he kind of took it upon himself to kind of hit on us from time to time, anytime his son wanted to talk bad about us. And you know, from there, my mom ended up trying to leave him, and she tried getting with who is now my stepdad. And that didn't exactly start too well. You know, it was a great beginning. You know, he was a great guy, and my mom's ex didn't take too kindly to that. I remember one time me and my mom and my brother were staying over at my stepdad's cottage on the beach, when I look out the door, sliding glass door, and I tell my brother, I said, "Hey, look, it's Mike." Well, my brother looks at me and he says, "Well, you know, get away from the door." Goes over and he shuts the curtains and he says, "Sit down and just watch TV." Well, I'll tell you, next thing I know, that sliding glass door comes open. Two men come barging through the door, open the bedroom where my mom and my stepdad were sleeping, threw my mom out the room, and one guy held my stepdad while the other guy beat him with a baseball bat. Yeah, just gonna cancel that phone call right there. Well, while one of them was beating him with a baseball bat, you know, my mom is screaming. Me and my brother, I can imagine, we're also screaming. And next thing I know, one of our workers, Tony, ends up barging in through the door, and I don't exactly know what happened in that altercation, but I remember him just freaking dragging the two of them out. And yeah, my stepdad was pretty well beat up, bruised, bloody. beaten down. You know, so that was the end of one relationship, the start of another. You know, so at that point, I'm about 7 years old. And we moved from Pensacola, Florida, up to Ambler, Pennsylvania, where I started my 3rd grade year. And let me tell you, that was not exactly the greatest moments of my life. It was where one of the times I really learned to not like reading. You know, I liked to read. I wanted to read. I wanted to read better. But I wanted to read other books that interested me instead of the category of books I was allowed to pull from. And the only reason I wasn't able to progress into the next category, and I'll tell you, in my opinion, a pretty petty reason, is I chose to read this one book. I can't 100% remember what the book was about, but I had a really hard time pronunciating a volcano's name from Hawaii. And it was for that reason that I wasn't able to progress to the next level of books. Well, when that happened, I didn't want to read anymore. You know, I felt like I was being held back from being able to read what I wanted, so why read at all? To this day, I like to read, but I don't, because it takes me so long to get into a book, and I'm such a slow reader. I'm not gonna lie. You know, what might take some people a couple days to a week might take me a week to a month. You know, not the fastest reader. It takes me a long time to finish a book. Anyways, that was the reading aspect of 3rd grade. The other aspect of 3rd grade was the fact that I got beat up almost every single day by these 2 kids, a white kid named Mark and a black kid named Denzel. They were good friends, and they thought it would just be fun to pick on me and beat me up every day, and, you know, for the stupidest reasons. I'm not even lying when I tell you they freaking beat me up for my lunch sometimes. Yeah, that happened. Whatever. I'm not ashamed of it. It's molded me and created the type of person that I am to this day. Some people agree with it, some people don't. I'll tell you, in one aspect, I'm a hard-working person. I run a crew, and, you know, I just give it my all. And the other aspect, you know, some people know me as a very soft, feministic person, you know, with a strong pull to female apparel and looks. Is what it is. I'm not ashamed of it. It's just part of my life. It's been something I've been doing since some of my first memories. I don't know why, but I kind of grew up always feeling very feminine. I don't know if it's the fact that I was raised by my mom for the most part, and she became like the sole model to my upbringing, or if it was due to the fact that I witnessed so many rotten men treat my mom horribly, and it made me think negatively about the male aspect. I don't know. I'm not a professional psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist. I can't really diagnose myself like that. You know, but those are just a few things about my life. Just a little bit to get started on understanding me and knowing who I am. And I hope with that way you can kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, with that, I'm hoping you can kind of understand where I come from and, I don't know, relate to it in some way, shape, form, or another. I hope that what I speak of allows some of you out there to feel like you're not alone in this world when shit hits the fan. When shit goes bad, someone else has had it bad too. It might not have been as bad as what's happened to some of you, and it might have been worse. You know, one thing I always say is the worst thing that has happened to me might not affect you much, but the worst thing that has happened to you might not affect me that much. You know, bad things affect everybody differently, and everybody processes negative trauma in a different way. I try not to let it get to me, but at the end of the day, you know, it's only attempts. Some days I succeed better than others. Other days, it gets the best of me. But that's life. We all move on and we'll all get through it. It gets better, and sometimes it gets worse, but I promise you that it gets better. You know, don't let the negativity dictate your future. You do you. Everybody be strong and, you know, keep up the good work. I want all of you to know that somebody cares about you. I care about you. You're relevant and your thoughts matter. So do your emotions. And I hope everybody finds a little bit of peace in their life and some happiness. And in the darkest times, I hope the light can find its way and shine through. With that being said, everybody have a good day. It's been nice talking to you, and I'll see you in another video. Bye now.